Cheer up, Hamlet, chin up, Hamlet, buck up, you melancholy Dane. So your uncle is a cad who murdered dad and married mum. That's really no excuse to be as glum as you've become. So wise up, Hamlet, rise up, Hamlet, perk up and sing a new refrain. Your incessant monologizing fills the castle with ennui. Your antic disposition is embarrassing to see. And by the way you sulky brat, the answer is to be. You're driving poor Ophelia insane. So shut up, you rogue and peasant. Grow up, it's most unpleasant. Cheer up, you melancholy Dane.
Welcome to the Slings and Arrows podcast. This is a rewatch of the 3 seasons of Slings and Arrows that aired from 2003 to 2006. We decided to do this as our summer rewatch, a Canadian series, and we really had asked the fans what they wanted us to watch and talk about, and an overwhelming response for Slings and Arrows made it pretty much the front runner. So today, myself, Kinda Mardambe, and my co-host Aaron Balla, say hi, Aaron.
Hello, hi again.
Are going to be doing 4 episodes of the podcast, and the first one will deal with season 1. Again, the second episode will be season 2, and the third episode will be season 3. And we're currently working on the 4th episode, which will be, we're hoping anyway, to get a couple of special guests to come on and talk about the show. So we'll let you in the know when we know a little bit more ourselves. So as I said, the show started up in 2003 by Rhombus Media, and it was kind of the brainchild of 3 very well-known people: Susan Coyne, Bob Martin, and Mark McKinney. McKinney, of course, is from Kids in the Hall fame, along with, a huge resume by all 3 of these people. But the thing is all 3 of them are comedians and have also had good experiences with the theater. Bob Martin did The Drowsy Chaperone. The premise is each season they cover a largely or well-known Shakespearean production. Season 1 is Hamlet. Season 2 is Macbeth, and Season 3 is King Lear. The name Slings and Arrows comes from the soliloquy that Hamlet does that's probably Shakespeare's most well-known soliloquy, to be or not to be. That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. So that's where the line comes from. Plus, I think, probably a double meaning of that is, performing on stage, that kind of leaving yourself all out there and possibly getting a few things flung at you if if you don't do something justice. The show was nominated for 50 awards for its whole run, and won 22, including 13 Gemini Awards. The entire series was directed by Peter Wellington, and it has some nice little homages to the world of Shakespeare and plays. Like the fact that the theater is called the New Burbage Theatre Company. It's, a herald back to Richard Burbage, who was both an actor at the time of Shakespeare, but also owned a theater company. So there's some nice little, little homages in that respect. It was 18 episodes in total and 45 minutes long approximately. Each show. Bob Martin created a bit of a stir, or I don't know, I think it might have been just a general comment. I don't know whether it was a very calculated move, but it really created a media storm, and everybody got very excited at the fact that he put on his Twitter account, "Slings may live again," so referencing maybe a season 4, and in that Twitter conversation, he actually mentions that they had thought or played with the idea for quite some time that the next production would be Richard III, which would be awesome. So that's kind of the rundown of what Slings and Arrows, is, that's your setup. But really, Aaron's going to take over now, and he's going to tell us the season 1 overview. Now, I must mention, both Aaron and I have not seen this show before. Have you seen it, Aaron?
No, I have not. Not at all. I am coming at this fresh.
It's been on my to-do list for quite some time. I do review all of the Stratford Shakespeare productions that go up on Press Plus One, which I'll give a little plug right now, www.pressplusone.com. I do all of the Stratford reviews for that, and I can definitely see how this show was pulled from our very own Canadian Shakespearean production company. So, take it away, Aaron.
Yes, all right. So the season 1 recap. So Slings and Arrows season 1 is the story of a production company in New Burbage, which is, like Kinda just mentioned, a thinly veiled reference to the Stratford Festival, which is a very great festival in Ontario. It's about, I think, an hour or two north of Toronto, and you have to go see it. It's amazing. I think it's a required viewing for every high school student in Toronto to make that one-day trip up there to watch something. But it's them as they put on a production of Hamlet. The series stars Paul Gross as Geoffrey Tennant, a previously well-known stage actor known for his own famed production of Hamlet, until he had a manic episode in the middle of a performance. He is tasked with directing this version of Hamlet after the original director Oliver Wells, and Geoffrey's old friend, happens to die tragically. Now, Geoffrey has to deal with his former lover and the queen diva of the stage, Ellen, the manager of the New Burbage Festival, Richard, who's played by Mark McKinney of Kids in the Hall, Richard's girlfriend and one of the festival's sponsors, Holly Day, a bright-eyed, idealistic young starlet, Kate, who is played by the lovely Rachel McAdams, an American movie star hoping to earn himself some cred, Jack Crew, and the ghost of Oliver, who haunts Geoffrey. Now, Geoffrey finds himself facing opposition from Richard and Holly's attempts to commercialize the festival, an enraged Ellen who's still mad about their breakup and who takes it out by dating men half her age, and Geoffrey's own demons from his history, and the ghost of Oliver who haunts Geoffrey to make the show constantly better.
What were some of the highlights for you of this season?
Throughout the whole season, kind of seeing that history between Geoffrey, Oliver, and Ellen sort of come out in bits and pieces, I think that really, it drew me in. You got to know that this wasn't kind of, I don't know, I think there are a lot of shows where they kind of write the pilot episode and they don't think too far ahead about how all the characters know each other. But this series felt very much like, although the creators knew the history of everyone, I greatly enjoyed that. I liked Paul Gross's performance, although I do have a Paul Gross story that I will have to share soon before the end of this podcast.
Oh, you can't leave me hanging like that. Now you have to tell it.
Now I have to tell it. Okay. So this is the time I met Paul Gross. As soon as I knew we were doing a Slings and Arrows rewatch, I knew this story was coming up. This is probably my best celebrity story. I was at the Cumberland 4 Theater to watch The Road, and for those of our listeners who've never been to the Cumberland 4, it's a pretty small theater. I think it's maybe at best 100, 150 people. You can hear everyone talking, basically. And I was there with my buddy, and we were watching the previews, and a preview for Gunless came up. And for those of you who don't remember Gunless, it was a Paul Gross movie about, I think, some sort of western town, but they didn't use guns. I didn't fully understand it. And I remember turning to my friend and saying, hey, Paul Gross directed that movie. Now, see, that should have been the time that Paul Gross emerged from wherever he was in the theater and said, hi, I'm Paul Gross. But he didn't, which was a bad thing, because I immediately launched into, with my buddy, man, Paul Gross sucks. I hated Passchendaele, his former movie, so much. This movie's gonna suck. It's gonna be horrible. Yada, yada, yada. We watched the movie, and as we're leaving the theater, I see a person, I go, hey, that looks like Paul Gross. So I walked up to him, tapped him, and said, hey, are you Paul Gross? And he looked at me up and down because he knew I was the person saying bad things about him. And he said, yeah, in like a deep, gravelly actor voice. Then he walked away with his wife and mother, I think. So that was the time I met Paul Gross and probably broke his heart and definitely ruined his enjoyment of watching the movie The Road.
Oh, you're a horrible human being, Aaron.
I know.
Now you've opened that can of worms. Here's my thoughts about Paul Gross. Like, he felt to me, you know, to begin with, a very commercialized Canadian. And, you know, it was surprising that he was still up in Canada, because I think, you know, he could have probably gone down to America and done very successfully for himself. You know, just another one of our wonderful exports that we seem to, you know, cultivate and then send away. And over the years, I really, really started to respect Paul Gross for being, for his performances, but being a director and a producer, and just kind of the projects that he picks, but definitely the commitment he has to them. And you really, in my opinion, I really see in Slings and Arrows, he puts an enormous amount of commitment into his performance. And I've grown to really appreciate, you know, him as an actor. I tell you what I like about his character here is that Geoffrey is to me Hamlet. I mean, you know, I don't know if you felt this way, but definitely it seemed to me is that the season was very much, you know, Hamlet and the ghost, the king, and you have these kind of interesting and intricate relationships, and then they keep kind of echoing or heralding back to, you know, and even the relationship between Jack and Kate. It's kind of like that Ophelia and Hamlet, like that original, you know, first flush of romance between the two of them, because, you know, Jack's a kind of a superstar, and you know, at that time a prince, you know, for her that would have been an enormous deal. So I just love how he became unhinged. I thought he was one of the highlights of the season, and really I think one of the highlights for me as well was I really think there was so much good in this. We should probably mention, like, if you don't listen to this, if you don't want any spoilers, because I think you either should have what, you know, maybe I should have made that disclaimer a little earlier, but, you know, really, if you haven't heard, you know, if you haven't watched the show before and you're just looking to get a very general perspective, go away now. I really liked the dynamic as well, like you said, between Ellen and Oliver and Geoffrey, and particularly that first conversation between Oliver and Geoffrey before Oliver dies. You know, yeah, where basically, you know, the whole thing that Geoffrey has to do is just keep hanging up on Oliver, and Oliver's trying to pour out his heart, but unsuccessfully.
Well, I think the best part of that scene was then when Geoffrey says, you want me to tell you why we hate you? I'll tell you. And then Oliver can't do it, and he just hangs up the phone. He can't hear it.
You know, also there was a lot of animosity between the Ellen character and played by Martha Burns, and the Geoffrey character played by Paul Gross, which, by the way, in my research, I just found out that they're married in real life. Did you know that?
I did not. So apparently I met her as well.
So you met Martha Burns too, and you offended Martha, but good for you there. Yeah, 2 for 2. And his mom is famous too. No, I'm just kidding. We haven't really talked about some of my favorite characters yet, which is Anna, the secretary, and Richard, and then his relationship with Holly Day.
I loved Holly. I mean, I know she kind of turned out to be the villain in the end, but she was great. She came in, she was all like focused and on point. And I mean, as soon as she meets Richard, she's just like in her head, boom, you're my new boyfriend. Like, let's do this. Let's not waste time. I loved that. Yeah, you're right. Anna was great. I loved that recurring joke of how would you like your coffee? Black, cream, and sugar. Black. Killed me both times, every time I heard it. No, it was great. And I think more than anything, the characters each felt unique. They felt different. and they felt very well prepared, and I think that's always important for me to know that I'm not kind of walking into something at the same time the creators are walking into it, that they put a lot of thought and effort into it, and it certainly showed.
Well, and I agree with you. That really came across to me because something I noticed, and this is so Shakespearean, is things will have double meanings. So, one sentence can mean one thing, but then it also has a subtext to it that's kind of apparent as well. So you could take a sentence two ways. There were little things that they did that you knew that this had been a very prepared production or a really loved production. Like they put the light on the stage, and that heralds back to superstitions within the theater. You must always leave a light on for the ghosts. And here you have Oliver kind of roaming around this new Burbage theater and haunting Geoffrey, and keep that light being kept on as almost a welcome mat for him to stay.
I kind of liked Oliver popping up every now and then, and I think even just that mystery of knowing he's dead, but then, well, initially, I'm not going to lie, they got me. At first I thought, no, he's still alive, you can't, because of course I'm coming in fresh. I thought, no, you can't kill off one of the main characters, and then I realized, no, he's actually dead, and it was interesting to see that, and then him popping up in Geoffrey's hallucinations or visions from time to time, and kind of nudging him the way that Geoffrey really wants to go, but for whatever reason feels held back and constrained until finally he can't take it anymore, and Geoffrey's forced to make the production better like he knows it should be.
I have to mention this because I just thought it was sick and twisted and so much like an actor, but so much like the theater as well, and there was something very beautiful about it at the end. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about...
Oh, I know.
The beheading of Oliver. and his head being taken off and becoming the skull of Yorick, alas, and forevermore his skull would be the skull that they used for the Yorick scene in Hamlet. I thought that was so twisted and creepy, but I loved it.
I totally forgot about it until the last episode when Geoffrey freaks out and remembers to get it and grabs it and is like running backstage and crawling under things to replace it, and it's just but still fascinating.
I thought that was so, and then what was really funny was the two, when he was at the morgue, and the two chaps trying to explain to him that he needed the head, and he found a good taxidermist, and I mean, I just thought that was hilarious. Really, I must say I really enjoyed. I don't know why I've taken so long to watch this show. I really did enjoy it. A couple of things that I enjoyed was Darren Nichols, which is played by Don McKellar, and he's really one of my favorite Canadian actors. I mean, this show alone is. It's a virtual who's who of Canadian theatre and Canadian television. There are many people in this show that are also currently playing in productions at Stratford, but definitely Don McKellar as Darren Nichols, and I'm going to start referring to everything by saying, let's read this corpse.
He was definitely pretty great. I loved how he wants to put pyro on everything and just really gussy it up to modern standards in the wrong ways. I loved it. It's probably, I'm going to offend someone saying this, but I think he is probably the Nickelback of Shakespearean directors.
Now Nickelback will be listening to this, and you will have offended Nickelback as well.
Apparently, I have a thing about offending Canadian stars. It's really my thing, and I like doing it, and everyone else is on notice, so watch out.
I think it's a talent, actually. I think you really have a talent for it.
It's my niche.
Yeah, it is your niche. Wrong place, wrong time. Yeah, that's it.
I'm not going to lie. I'm always worried now that Paul Gross is just somewhere behind me, just going to pop out anytime I try to talk about him. So I hope he's not in my bedroom, because that would really freak me out. Actually, while we're back on Paul Gross, I think I might. I know we might not have gotten to that section yet in terms of what we didn't love, but I think as much as I liked Paul Gross's Geoffrey Tennant, sometimes it felt a little too almost what's expected. I don't know. I think when I saw this character of Geoffrey Tennant, and I thought, wow, okay, he's kind of unhinged. He's not fully there, but he's got this great core, and he wants to be better. And I just thought some actor is going to salivate over this role, and in this case it was Paul Gross. But it almost felt a little like when actors are kind of picking their Oscar projects, and there's always those certain characters that are almost designed to be Best Actor winners. You got, say, Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, or Sean Penn in I Am Sam, where they're playing kind of like the mentally disabled type. And almost like, I don't know, I felt a little bit of that with Geoffrey Tennant, just like it was such a character that you knew some actor, some kind of big name actor was going to go crazy for it. Do you know what I mean?
No. So do you mean, like, was this tailored for Paul Gross as a kind of a glory piece? Is that what you're saying? Or was this for another actor?
Maybe a little. I think it's sometimes when you hear talk about the Oscars, like, oh, such and such character is making herself ugly. Like Charlize Theron is making herself ugly for Monster because she wants to win an Oscar. It almost felt like Paul Gross is playing Geoffrey Tennant because he wants to win the awards almost. And not to say that he doesn't believe in the series or anything like that, but it felt a little like when they were designing the character, they knew this was some awards show bait.
I think that's really interesting because nobody really watches the Geminis. I mean, some people do, but it's not really such a big honor. I mean, they did win 13 Geminis, which is pretty enormous, but I don't know whether that's something Canadian actors kind of go out of their way for. But in my perspective, what I really felt about Geoffrey, and really I felt like he was the mouthpiece for logic, or for how we should be treating the theater and how we should be feeling about the theater. All this chaos around him, and all of this Richard with the dollars and cents, and even Oliver's interpretation of the theater was very
commercialized, and they had all the little dolls and whatnot that you could buy.
Just you said, over-commercialized, but, even the performances were overdone, overdressed, overstaged, and I kind of feel like the Geoffrey character is the one who's, I mean, from what I know of the theater, and the Stratford Theater, which I think is probably just as much a template as any theater company, the world over, what portion I know about Stratford, what I saw in Slings and Arrows was bang on. So that makes me feel like the portions I don't know about the theater world, like the other side of it, must be bang on as well. I mean, their interpretation, their dialogue about it. And, we mentioned things like three musicals in a single season, like it was almost disgusting or taboo. And they do that to get the people in to watch the shows. But, and this year, we have 3 productions going up that are musicals. So I think, like, I'm a Geoffrey Tennant. I'm a Geoffrey Tennant. If I was, if there was a character in the show that would be something that I would feel akin to, it would definitely be his character, because his purpose is, for me, it's like, I love a production best when they strip the performers and the stage down to bare essentials. I wouldn't care if they were dressed in, black t-shirts and black jeans, but if they performed their hearts out, and they made you as an audience emote and feel and be in that present moment, I wouldn't care. I don't care about the staging and the frillies and all that kind of stuff. Maybe I'm a little unhinged like Geoffrey myself, but I'm
not gonna lie, when you're saying what character you're like, I'm looking at the list and I'm thinking, I'm worried I'm like Darren Nichols. I wanna put pyro on things. I just want to make the craziest performance ever. I'm worried But see, I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I know especially with the main performance of Hamlet here, everyone was kind of in modern dress, and so you have Jack Crew wearing a hoodie as he plays Hamlet, and I think Kate's in cargo shorts, and I don't know. It threw me. I don't know. I didn't love it. Maybe I'm too used to like the old kind of everyone in proper period dress.
Yeah. And, I think that has its merits too, but I think, I mean, we're just finishing with an artistic director at Stratford now called Des McAnuff, and he's kind of known he's a little bit like Darren Nichols. I mean, he's created Broadway productions, and he's known for, enormous musicals that do incredibly well, the world over, and like Jersey Boys and things like that. And he's come to Stratford, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. And, what he brought to it was, one, a lot of musicals, and two, he's in the Shakespearean productions that he's done, it's constantly been, I mean, for me, it's been exhaustive, because Orson Welles did a production in the 1940s that was pivotal. It had always been performed in, correct traditional attire. And what Wells did in his early 20s was quite phenomenal. He did War of the Worlds on the radio. He was directing Citizen Kane, and at the same time, he staged this production, and he put all the Shakespearean production where he put everybody in costumes that were of the time, were about the war that was going on at that time. And it kind of blew people's minds away. Like, it just was like so affecting. Because what they could see was that Shakespeare's words about war were really, were as pertinent that day as it was, back in the 15s and 1600s. But what Des McAnuff took from that was, everything needs to be in military garb and of the present day, and we need machine guns, and we need big explosions and things blowing up and da da da. But I mean, it wasn't his particular priority or his level of expertise. It's not something that he's adapt to, and we've got, a new artistic director coming in who's dedicated his life to the performances, and so it'll be an interesting shift to see, indeed. But yeah, I think it just becomes the question between, that level of creativity versus the funding. Like, you definitely see that in that season, in season 1, that struggle between, counting all the dollars and cents and making sure the production runs, and the creative pull. So there's your Richard and your Geoffrey, right?
Yeah, no, you 100% nailed it. I mean, even when we see Geoffrey's initial production, it's at a small company, the Théâtre Sans Argent, which is theater without money, which is actually another quibble of mine. I don't know what happened to them after he left, and I'm really concerned. They just kind of disappeared after the first episode. They were being, unless did he bring them with him to, no, he didn't. I don't think he did.
He did kind of ditch him. That was a little bit cruel, wasn't it?
Yeah, where's his morals there? I'm just quibbling. I'm sure they're fine. They're in jail somewhere. They're evicted. They'll be okay. They're putting on stage plays in jail. It's all good.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
But no, certainly it is that idea of the art of it, of not having characters in pure piece, of having the actors emote, of having the character shine through and the story shine through, irrespective of the stage, irrespective of what they're wearing, versus Richard and Holly, who want to make money off of this, who want to have 2 shows here and a matinee there, and want to transform the town of New Burbage into Shakespeare'sville. And I think that's something that every artist has to face. I'm sure even the creators of the show have to face it, in terms of, well, really every TV show has to face it. You can make whatever art you want, but if you can't make money off of it, people don't really care that much. That's how a lot of shows die. A lot of great shows have died because no one's watching. And on the flip side, a lot of really bad shows do very well because people are watching, but they're really horrible. And I think that's the fine line of art, to be able to make good quality things that push boundaries, things that make you think, things that are art and yet can somehow still make money.
Something, if we're going into, I wouldn't like to say kind of the negative or the flaws. I'm going to say that the comedy elements and the tragedies. What were the tragedy elements of this show, this season? And for me, I felt I mean, I'm a big fan of Luke Kirby, especially after seeing Take This Waltz. And anybody who's seen Take This Waltz, Sarah Polley's new film, will understand why Luke Kirby is so fantastic. I really felt like he played the superstar really well. Like, he was good on that front. But then when it came to the last episode, and we had to, I mean, I didn't know whether we were supposed to be wowed by his performance of Hamlet, but the audience were kind of wowed by it, but I wasn't wowed by it, you know?
See, I actually thought he didn't play the superstar aspect as well. I felt a little bit almost like they threw a leather jacket on him and jeans. They're like, there, that's what a movie star looks like. You're a movie star. I felt he was a little better as, maybe he was a little miscast. I think he would have done better as kind of an actor who wants to be better. Maybe, I mean, not to say he should have been similar to Kate, but kind of more like her character, kind of wanting to do that instead of, I'm this big superstar and I'm coming in because I want to actually act and I want to earn some credibility and not, be that guy on the posters of every action movie. But, I mean, I think he is a solid actor. I just think he was a little miscast here. I think, I don't know if they should have done it, if they wanted to keep character and just do a different actor, or keep the actor and maybe change the character a little bit, I think I'd say.
I felt like it could have been okay that he wasn't great at it, but because he wasn't going to be, like, even the critics weren't going to think much of him because he was famous. But yeah, I was like, oh, the audience in the show is wowed. Should I be wowed too? Or maybe I should be wowed too,
I think when he plays Hamlet, he kind of played it more subdued, and I think it's hard to get a very strong reaction from a subdued performance. I think it's easier to get a strong reaction from a powerful performance.
Aaron, what was the tragedy for you of the show?
What tragedies? I think I kind of mentioned my big issue with Geoffrey Tennant. Kate was a little... No, I liked Kate. I didn't like Kate's friend. I don't remember her name now. But Kate's friend, who plays Ophelia and is just really bad at playing Ophelia. I mean, she was good for laughs, definitely, but it was a little, I don't know, a little sparse for her. And I never liked Ellen's boy toy. It rubbed me the wrong way, I think.
Sloane?
Yeah, he was... I mean, hey, when he's hanging out with chameleons, I'm cool with that. But when I think he stuck around like 4 episodes too long.
Yeah, it did seem kind of pushed, that her relationship with him. It seemed very pushed to me. Like, not that I ever have a problem with seeing a woman of a certain age be with a younger man, because it's quite often the flip of that, a man of a certain age and a younger woman, and we're not supposed to kind of think or talk or mention it. But, kind of her level of holding on to her youth and her youngness and her, being an actress, like your every line and wrinkle and everything is up for question, or if you put on weight or whatever. So there's a lot of pressure there, and I think she was trying to get it through osmosis with Sloane, or these young relationships. It was like, if I'm around youth, then I probably am youthful, or I feel, but she wasn't. Like, she still kind of treated him very much like, like somebody she had to take care of, more of a maternal role than an equal relationship.
Character was a little thin to start. It got better, I think, in the last 2 episodes, but certainly the first 4, I felt like, who are you? Are you just this angry diva of the stage, who comes to rehearsals late and demands extra lines and extra attention? And I think only later on, when we saw her with Geoffrey by the end, did we really get a better sense of her
I loved her screaming at people and then apologizing. I thought that was fantastic. I'm like, I need to incorporate that more in my life. Like, I agree with you. I didn't find that she had a particularly strong character to work with. But I also think that, you know, at the end, for me, one of the big tragedies was, I guess a lot of the tragedy came for me at the end of the season, the last episode, because you know, the Jack crew, you know, finale didn't really hit me very hard. But also, you know, something to me that was like all season was building up to, you know, did Geoffrey go crazy for a good reason? Like, did he go out of his gourd for 7 years or 8 years for what I would feel a legitimized reason? And you know, when it was kind of like, you know, my girlfriend slept with my best friend, I don't know, I just didn't feel that was that was quite the impact I was looking for. I was, you know, I was kind of surprised that, and I just kept waiting for the, and, you know.
Yeah, now that you bring it up, I mean, it really didn't hit as it didn't land like it should have, I think. Especially knowing Oliver was gay, I felt weird, like, why were you sleeping with Ellen then? I'm confused. This isn't how this works. You're doing it wrong. Yeah, no, I think you're right. It doesn't really hit as hard as it should be for him to go crazy, to go mental, because it's such a big portion of his character. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. I kept waiting for it's something to be a little bit more, like, I don't know, something in his childhood, or, you know, there was a tragedy, or I don't know. It just didn't feel like, I guess it just didn't feel Shakespearean enough, you know, like, you know, Lady Macbeth goes insane because, you know, she has too much blood on her hands. Too many people have been murdered for her, you know, aspirations. And in Hamlet, Ophelia goes crazy, you know, because basically you know, and just as Geoffrey says in the season, like, every man, like, her whole life has been dominated by men, and every single man that she's, you know, she's been kind of told to do this and told to do that has completely left her, and she feels not only abandoned, but she's lost knowing what to do, because there's no strong male around to tell her that. I mean, you know, so I don't know, I just, you know, and then on top of that, you know, she's dealing with death, with the loss of somebody, so, you know, I don't know, I just I was kind of like, and he went crazy for 8 years for that? Like, could he not have gone over and talked to her? Or I don't know. Dipping back into the highlights, I loved, I'm going to call them Statler and Waldorf. Do you remember you know who I mean?
Oh, that's exactly what I was calling them too.
Was it? Okay, so anybody who doesn't know, in the Muppets, those grumpy old men who, you know, are kind of heckling the show is called Statler and Waldorf, and there's two characters in the show who, they don't so much heckle, but they sure as hell gossip.
Yeah, oh man, they were solid. I think just kind of in the background of scenes, just kind of, I think also very good at disseminating the information for us, just like doing the gossip, saying, oh, you know, that's Geoffrey, he went crazy, he did XYZ, and kind of giving us that information, and yet also having kind of like that jokey, that kind of sour tone with it too sometimes. No, they were awesome. And they also do the theme song, if I'm correct.
Yeah, Call the Understudy and Cheer Up Hamlet. And those songs those are, I think they're actually created for this show, but they are music hall type songs, like something you would hear Noel Coward sing, you know, and I you know, I absolutely loved that was how the show started, and that's how we went out, because again, it's part of that heralding back to the history of theater, you know, and not only that, it rings in my head daily, so
yeah, it's stuck there now. It's not getting out.
So, I suggest we talk a little bit about our last segment, which is who stole the show of season 1. Who did you think stole the show?
I'm gonna go with Geoffrey. You know, he was just such a character. He was so powerful, and I know I had some misgivings about him, but I mean, he just killed it, and he slayed it. He did everything right in the character role. I'll say that. For as much as I say it was kind of like a award-seeking performance, he also didn't do anything wrong with it. He did exactly what he should have with it. And I mean, I would definitely give it to Paul Gross for playing the character so perfectly.
Wow, that does surprise me.
Well, you see, he just walked into my bedroom right now, so I have to say nice things.
Which, by the way, folks, I am not in Aaron's bedroom. We are doing this at different locations. Just to clarify that. To me, this was a really tough choice because I kind of feel like I agree with you wholeheartedly that Geoffrey stole the show, and you know, and just his whole character. I just agreed with everything about his character. But then I'm kind of torn because I loved the Anna character so much. I actually think she's going to get better in seasons to come, so she's not going to be my pick. But my pick would have to be Mark McKinney as Richard Smith Jones. So that is going to be, you know, who stole the show this season was, to me, definitely Richard. And the reason I'm saying this is because, excuse me, Richard's delivery is so, or Mark's delivery is so deadpan, you could almost miss the comedy. But everything he says is lampooning executive directors, you know, the world over, who have to contend with these crazy creative types and also have to try and find the funding for these crazy creative types. And, you know, his delivery, you know, saying things like Oliver was not only a friend, he was a colleague too. I mean, it was like, and that just tickled my funny bone for days. And it was those types of things where I would kind of go back and I would think, yeah, that was funny, or I'm still laughing at that. And I think it's one of the more underrated performances.
I feel like we didn't talk enough about Rachel McAdams, and I want to talk more about her, but she was a little, I don't know, maybe a little quiet. She had a nice arc, you know, of loving the theater and getting to play Ophelia finally after idolizing her when she saw it at age 12, and her falling in love with Jack, and, you know, first doubting it and then realizing, no, I really like him for him. And I think it was just nice to see her so young all those years ago.
How many years ago was that? Wow. Yeah, I thought it was interesting to kind of see her in her formative, you know, kind of years of performance. And I thought that was interesting. The thing that I felt, you know, as far as her as an actress, I was just kind of surprised that she is as good today as she was then. Like, it doesn't, I mean, with all of her skills and training and movies and stuff, she really hasn't got any better than she was in Slings and Arrows, but I think she was good in Slings and Arrows. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's like the cream always rises to the top. You know, if you're good, it'll always come out. It'll always be found, kind of thing.
Yeah, but now I just want her to push a little harder. Now I want her to do something that kind of makes her go out of her comfort zone. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I just think like a lot of what she's done has been very comfortable, and it would be nice to see her do something that was a little bit more, I don't know, like a Carey Mulligan performance or something, you know?
Yeah, something I wanted to talk about that you just kind of reminded me was that, like, I've never seen a show kind of like this, in the sense that I've seen doctor shows, I've seen lawyer shows, I've seen cop shows, but I don't really see, this is the first show I've ever seen that's kind of about backstage at a theater, and I like that. You know, I want to be transported into these worlds that I don't know and don't understand, but, you know, they can still find the drama in that, and I think that's a rare thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I'm so glad you mentioned this, actually, because the show, to me, I mean, I agree with you. This, to me, was so interesting and so exciting to kind of watch the behind the scenes of a production. There's a film made in the 1990s called A Midwinter's Tale, or In the Bleak Midwinter, and it was a production that Kenneth Branagh did, and it's basically a ragtag group of actors who go into this big church in England in a town called Hope, and they put on a production of Hamlet, and they're all kind of failing, basically, actors, and it's their opportunity to perform Hamlet, and you have this cast of like eclectic, crazy people who just seem, and it's such a funny and charming and beautiful film, and it just reminded me a little bit of when I was watching Slings and Arrows. It's like, you know what, this is thoroughly entertaining. I mean, I don't know, I agree with you. Why don't we see more of these types of shows that kind of explore a world that we're not overly familiar with, and the characters and the people within them?
No, I'm just really excited to see what they bring out for season 2, I guess.
And another thing I'm looking forward to this season is season 2 is Macbeth.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be good. Macbeth. You can't say Macbeth, it's bad luck. It's superstitious to say. It's actually one of my favorite Shakespearean productions. So, do you know Macbeth very well?
Yes, I do. I think I was more a fan of A Midsummer Night's Dream, however.
Oh, boo. That's like my least favorite. That's the production I hate seeing the most. Is A Midsummer Night's Dream. Wow, you really are the Darren Nichols of
Yeah, this is going to be a fun 4 podcast, Kinda.
So our next episode will be airing on July 19th, which is a Thursday. We are doing, as I said, the 4 episodes. This is the first of the 4, and we will be doing it every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the Press Plus One podcast for rewatch of Slings and Arrows. Our website is www.pressplusnumeral1.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at PressPlusNumeral1. Now, we want to do more rewatches in the future like this. So we want to know from you, what are your favorite Canadian television shows that you think it would be great to do a season rewatch of, or a series rewatch of. But for this time round, we actually want to hear your feedback on Slings and Arrows.
Don't worry, I call it Slings and Errands sometimes because I just love my name.
For this time around, with the Slings and Arrows podcast, we actually want to hear what you have to say. So please leave your feedback and your comments and your thoughts on our comment box on Press Plus One, and we will read your feedback in our next podcast. So tell us what you thought of season 1, or what you thought about the our thoughts in the podcast about season 1, and in the season 2 episode airing on July 19th, we will read your comments. So again, this is the Press Plus One Slings and Arrows Rewatch podcast, and my name's Kinda Mardambe, and my co-host has been Aaron Bala. Thank you again, Aaron.
Thank you, Kinda.
I've just enjoyed this immensely. I think this is the right way for me to be catching up on Slings and Arrows. How about you?
No, it sounds good. It helps that I have a partner in crime with me doing this.
I'm dead to good and tight. Before they raise the curtain, I'll be higher than a kite. So call me understudy. I can't go on tonight.